You're listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a podcast where we explore what it's like getting older, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. In this season of Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, we're covering topics related to vibrant aging. I'm your host, Cheryl Praska. Let's grow old together. In today's episode, I'm joined by Eric Levitan, who is the founder and CEO of Vivo, a fitness program that offers live and interactive virtual small group classes over Zoom to older adults. Eric left corporate America after more than 25 years of working in technology and running software companies to try to positively impact people's lives and make a difference in the world through Vivo. Eric, welcome, and thank you for being here. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks so much, Cheryl, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, Eric, you're joining me today to talk about Vivo and the importance of strength training for older adults. To start, could you share a little bit about yourself and the journey that led you to the founding of Vivo?
Absolutely. And it is a little bit of a roundabout story. I do not have a background in gerontology or geriatrics or fitness or aging, but really experienced this through my own personal experiences with my aging parents, which I think is so indicative for a lot of people who are really focused on this space, which was watching this decline in the quality of life of my own parents and subsequent things that started to happen. And I am fortunate. I do have a background in entrepreneurship. I had started a company in the past and was fortunate to have a little bit of success with that company, which afforded me the opportunity to do something else and to pursue other things that were passions. And as a part of my last entrepreneurial experience, I was a part of an executive coaching program in Atlanta called Vistage, and we had basically monthly meetings and monthly speakers. And one of those speakers was an older gentleman who came in and talked about the four cornerstones of healthy aging. And you couldn't really tell how old he was, but he came in a short sleeve shirt like this, and he had bulging biceps.
Mm.
And he looked like maybe he was in his mid 50s. And he introduced himself. He was 75. He was a neurologist and proceeded to introduce us into these kind of four core concepts that felt fairly intuitive, but the more he talked about them, the more he got into depths of things that I'd never heard before. And those four areas were nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mental health slash meditation. And I'd heard a little bit about each of these and knew how important they were, but he really dove deep into exercise and introduced me to a word that I'd never heard before, and is a word that I think is really helpful for your listeners to know. And that word is sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the progressive loss of muscle mass as we age that leads to a loss of function and ultimately a loss of independence. And it is something that literally happens to every person on the planet, regardless of your gender, regardless of your socioeconomic status or what country you live in. We all lose muscle mass as we age, and it is a progressive condition. It accelerates as we get older. It starts in our 30s, believe it or not, which is totally depressing, but it really starts to accelerate in our 60s, and that is where we'll often start to feel the pains of aging as we get older, where things get harder, right? Standing up out of a chair, we start to find is a little bit more challenging. How we walk, we change our gait, we start to shuffle our feet. Getting off of the floor becomes more challenging. These are all things that begin to happen, and we just associate with frailty. Well, there's actually this underlying condition called sarcopenia that's happening. And what he also talked about was it's actually possible at any age to rebuild strength, to regain muscle mass. And that kind of sat with me and remembered that there was this thing. And I remember talking to my parents about it at the time and really saying, have you heard of sarcopenia before? And everyone I talked to, no one had ever heard of this word. Well, fast forward to around 2018, and my parents started really experiencing a lot of decline. And what I now know to be pretty typical of that time frame in their late 70s, mid to late 70s. And my mom in particular started having a number of falls. And I
Mhm.
remember her primary care physician recommending to her that she needed to walk more. And I already knew that my mom was walking every day. She was walking a couple miles every day and literally had this recall of that presenter talking about sarcopenia and thinking, my mom doesn't need to walk. My mom needs to strength train. But
Mhm.
there's really not a lot of resources to help an older adult guide them through getting started in a strength training program. And what a huge need, right? There is this tremendous aging population that's happening. There's a lot of conversation around the fact that we have the largest aging population the world has ever known, and it's only getting bigger. We've got this tremendous caregiver burden that's out there as well, and shortage around healthcare professionals, et cetera. We need to invest in helping older adults stay strong, stay independent, live high quality of life, right? Do the things that we want to do. And we've got this thing that's out there, which is the ability to maintain your strength as you age that most people are not doing. How do we bring something to market that can help guide an older adult to start building strength?
And I know that Vivo helps older adults with their strength training and building muscle. I'd love to hear it from you and hear you explain what the core mission of Vivo is.
So at our heart, we are trying to help build strength, but we're doing this for kind of three important reasons. One is it really allows you to maintain your quality of life. It's all about really being able to continue to do the things that you want to do, whether it's gardening, whether it's traveling, whether it's playing with your grandkids and getting to the floor and getting off of the floor, right? There's just a tremendous amount of personal value that you can get when you're strong, when you're confident. So that's kind of, reason number one. Reason number two is it's really, really profound at preventing a lot of the disease that occurs with aging and the negative consequences. So right at the top of that list is falls. Falls are a absolutely catastrophic thing that can happen, and falls happen for a variety of reasons, but perhaps the most significant is we lose our strength, we lose our core strength, we lose our lower body strength. It starts to change the way we walk. We end up not picking up our feet as much, and we it increases our risk of falls. And when we do fall, it impairs our ability to catch ourselves, to prevent something happening that is significant. And so strength plays a huge role in increasing fall risk, but that's literally the tip of the iceberg. Type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, Parkinson's, dementia, and about 75 other conditions are all either caused by or significantly impacted by a loss of muscle mass and strength as we age. And so there's this really, really strong focus on health and preventing or managing these chronic conditions related to aging, that strength plays a really significant role. And then the third and perhaps kind of the culmination of those two is maintaining your independence. Is most older adults want to remain independent, they want to remain in their own homes, and building strength is the most significant lever you can pull towards really maintaining your independence because of those former two things. So that's at the heart of what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the narrative around what aging looks like and really enable people to take control of that and lead the kind of lives that they live. And we do this by providing this class that is online. And we want to allow people to engage from wherever they may be, whether they have access to a facility or not. But it's not a video. It's not a one way live stream like a Peloton might be, where there's a live trainer and hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of participants. This is a live and interactive small group. And I'm happy to dive into the details of why, but there's a real profound intervention that's there when you connect people in a live environment where there's enough room for conversation, but also for personalized real time feedback that really drives what we're doing.
I know I have a question for you about that, and I'd love to jump down to it and cover it now because you've given me a beautiful segue. And it is, how important is community support in fostering healthy aging? And how does Vivo encourage social engagement alongside the physical activity?
It's everything. And what we have seen, look, there are lots of ways for people to engage in exercise today, and for a lot of your viewers, they're probably taking advantage of a handful of them or have over the life cycle of kind of their fitness journey. And no one solution is for everybody, but what we found is what's predominantly out there is they're video based, content. It's an app on your phone. It might be YouTube. It might be an at home exercise program that a physical therapist gave you. And for some percentage of the population, this is a wonderful solution. If you are self motivated and disciplined enough, and you've got some foundational understanding of how to exercise, these can be really wonderful solutions that are super flexible. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we don't have those things, right? We need someone to help guide us through this, and we need the social support. We need the community to keep us accountable, and that is what we are doing. So we really lean into two really core principles around behavioral science of a small group. A small group, on the one hand, is small enough that a live trainer can give everybody individualized feedback in real time. So we have a certified personal trainer who understands exercise and aging, who's looking at everybody in that group. We cap our classes around 8 to 10 people. So it's small enough that a live trainer can look at you, Cheryl, and say, hey, your knees are coming in when you're standing up out of that squat. Make sure they're pointing with your toes because we want to prevent you from getting injured. We want to encourage and teach what good form looks like. And we want to get you to engage at a level of challenge that's appropriate for you on that day. And that's what we often see is when you're left to your own devices and you're doing this exercise, watching a video, you may or may not challenge yourself, and you may or may not have good form. And getting to a level of challenge isn't often discussed, but is a really important part of this. Because if it's not a little bit challenging, you're not going to see those outcomes. You're not going to see those gains in strength and function and a lot of those health benefits. So we want to help people get to that level of challenge. We also want to be able to modify exercises if someone's experiencing pain or discomfort or they are managing a chronic condition. And so having a live trainer that can give you individualized feedback is super, super important. But that's the only half of it. The other half is exactly what you just asked about. Look, for the most part, we all know exercise is good for us, but we don't do it. And how do you help someone adopt exercise as a habit? And you make it fun, you make it social, and you create accountability to a group. Those are three really important elements that help lead to behavioral change. And that is what we are doing with this small group. And how we do that is we do something in every class called dual task exercises. And for your listeners who may not be familiar with what a dual task exercise is, it's the simultaneous physical movement and cognitive recall.
Hmm.
In other words, we ask people questions while they're moving. It can be, by the way, there's a lot of science around this, especially over the last 10, 15 years. It actually facilitates something called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, the formation of these new neural pathways. It's quite popular in programming for neurocognitive disorders like Parkinson's, like dementia. Um, how we bring this into every Vivo class, it changes every single class, but we essentially do these little brain games. It can be something as silly as Cheryl, while you're doing your squats or chair stands as your warm up, name for me as many words that begin with the letter B as possible. Go. And it sounds silly. It is silly, but it's honestly quite challenging. Your brain is really focused on the movement of your body, right? Standing, sitting down and standing back up. And now you're being asked to recall words that begin with the letter B. And you'd be surprised how challenging that is. What this leads to is it's fun. People laugh. It's challenging. It's silly. Um, it gets people talking in a small group, and inevitably, when you get people talking in a small group, it leads to conversation. And with conversation, that leads to social connection. Social connection leads to accountability, which ultimately leads to behavioral change. So in every single class, we're throwing out prompts, we're getting people talking, we're really facilitating this kind of social connection. And after 4.5 years, we see it working to the point of we've got incredible stories where people go to really far extent not to miss their Vivo classes because they are so connected with their group. So we don't just, the final thing I'll say is we don't just ask people to name words that begin with a letter or name things that are blue or green or name countries in Europe. We will ask more personal questions. And this was a real example from a few weeks ago. We went around the class and the trainer asked everyone to talk about in as much detail as they could the first car that they ever owned. And the first person talked about their car, and literally someone else was like, "Oh my gosh, I had the same car. What color was yours?" And it expanded from there, right? Before we knew it, everyone was having these really, really fun conversations around the cars that they owned and how much money they spent and how funny it is to look back on that. After class, people went online and found pictures of their cars and they emailed the group. And it was this wonderful point of connection. And it felt a little bit less like an exercise class and a lot more like a community experience. And everyone was a little bit closer after that class. And I thought it was really a wonderful example of what these dual task exercises bring to this class is we're not just focused on cognition and brain health, we're also focused on social connection and building this sense of community.
Just curious, how do you and your trainers come up with the questions that you're going to put out to the community?
So there is a little bit of science around this. We have
Okay.
a gentleman who is a professor in the Department of Neurology at the Emory School of Medicine. He studies brain health and exercise for a living, and really has helped us build out this really repertoire of kind of brain teasers and prompts. Sometimes they're movement based. Sometimes we read a story, and then we ask questions throughout the class. Sometimes we get people just talking about their experiences. Sometimes we leverage colors and words as associations. It really runs the gamut, but there's a lot of experience from some researchers that bring this into the program.
What more might you like to say about the either the exercise science or the brain health research that goes into the programs that you and your team are putting together at Vivo?
So that is truly the foundation of everything that we do. Is we wanted to differentiate ourselves in a number of different ways, but we never wanted to lose sight of the fact that we have to be engaging a population that is could be more vulnerable, b has a myriad of conditions that we have to address, and c really leaning into how do we get outcomes, how do we really make sure that this is going to work, because if this is just going to be something that we engage people in, but doesn't really help create more mobility, create more strength, create more engagement and quality of life, why do it? And there's plenty of other solutions that are out there that don't work, right? Like we don't need to add one more to the list.
Mhm.
There's a million videos of someone doing a push-up or a squat. We don't need to be a million and one. So the core foundation from the very beginning was we're going to demonstrate efficacy for what this program's all about, and we're going to bring in all of the latest science around exercise and aging. So we have a scientific advisory team with professors who do research in exercise and science from the Emory School of Medicine, the Duke University School of Medicine, the Wake Forest School of Medicine, the University of San Francisco. We have tapped into researchers all over the country who are helping us really define this program that we feel very, very confident is built on science and actually gets outcomes. And on top of that, we do something else that we think is pretty unique in this space. We do a one on one assessment with every single person when they join the program. And we baseline their balance, their upper body strength, lower body strength, endurance, and agility. And then we reassess every 2 to 3 months. And so we actually track progress. We measure the efficacy of the program. We create these graphs of your progress over time. And we first did that because we wanted to make sure this program was working. But what we found is it's actually super motivational for the member, right? For the
Mhm.
participant, because they get to see their progress. And I can tell you, Cheryl, it is not rocket science. It turns out if you strength train consistently, you get stronger. Literally 100% of the people that we've ever baseline assessed and reassessed at that 2 to 3 month mark, 100% of people have gotten stronger. It always happens. It is the way the human body responds. If you work to a level of challenge, your body adapts and it builds strength. Now, there's a lot to it, right? We want to make sure people are hitting this level of challenge. We really encourage things like protein consumption, which is a really core element. You need to be eating adequate amounts of protein, which is another conversation. But we're really, really focused on the science behind exercise and aging. What that has led to, which we're so excited about, is we're actually involved in three pretty significant research projects right now demonstrating the clinical efficacy of this program. We were awarded a pretty significant grant from the NIH, specifically the National Institute on Aging, to study the impact of Vivo on older adults with prediabetes. We are in the third year of a 3-year clinical trial. Our research partner is the Duke University School of Medicine. We're providing the intervention. They're providing the research team to maintain integrity. And we're in the middle of a randomized control trial right now that will finish in the probably late spring of 2025. But we already have seen outcomes that are extremely encouraging. We're also doing a research project with the Wake Forest School of Medicine around Vivo for rural older adults in North Carolina with cardiovascular disease. And we're working with a large health system out west on the impacts of Vivo on older adults with knee arthritis and significant knee pain. And so it's really, really exciting stuff to be able to take this program that we've created and validate it with independent research organizations, academic, research institutions, and health systems that are seeing what the impact of this program is to an older adult who's suffering from one of these conditions. And it's fantastic.
Would you prefer to age independently in your own home or live in a nursing facility? I know what I'd rather do. Friends Life Care membership offers just that. Plan today for a future lived at home with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience while protecting your savings. Learn about your options at a free seminar or webinar. Register at friendslifecare.org/register or call 215-628-8964. So first, congratulations on the grants and what sounds like you're seeing some positive results. So, wonderful on you and your team. Where my head is going is as you're saying, aging affects everyone differently. And you could have someone come in who is 60 years old, perfectly healthy, and perhaps they've been an avid exerciser for the majority of their life. Then you could have someone who comes in and they're pre-diabetic or they have these cardiovascular problems. So how are you customizing the programs at Vivo for people with these varying either levels of physical ability or health conditions?
Yeah, that's such an important part of what we do, and I think what also makes us different. And probably the simplest way to answer this is for every exercise that we introduce 4 variations of that movement pattern. We just call these levels quite simply. Level 1 exercises will generally be seated or standing supported if you've got low mobility or balance issues, et cetera. And on the other end of the spectrum, level 4 will be the most challenging version of that same movement, which usually involves getting to the floor, some sort of plyometric, jumping, hopping motion. And what we do is we don't assign a personal level, but we introduce these 4 different variations and we help people find what's appropriate for them on that day. Because even from day to day, you may change what you're doing, right? You may have slept poorly the night before and you're not able to do, maybe you're typically doing level 3 and 4 versions of exercises, but you're not feeling so hot that day. Your neck hurts, your knee hurts, your back hurts. Maybe you're under the weather. Maybe you're recovering from COVID and you just don't quite have your cardiovascular conditioning back yet. We always want to encourage people to find that level that's appropriate for them on that day. And very often, almost more often than not, that differs from exercise to exercise. So someone may be dealing with some lower body dysfunction and maybe they had knee replacement surgery or they're about to have knee replacement surgery and they're doing level 1 and 2 lower body exercises, but they've got a strong upper body and a lot of mobility and they're doing level 3 and 4 upper body exercises. So part of this small group, part of that live trainer that's there, that's watching everybody, that's guiding this, is helping people find the level that's right for them. So at the very, very, most fundamental foundational level, we've got this concept of levels for every single exercise that we do. Beyond that, what we have found is creating groups of people who are in kind of similar positions really help make the class a little bit more cohesive. And so we've created 3 kind of branded versions of Vivo classes. On one end of the spectrum, we call it Vivo Foundations. Vivo Foundations are generally for individuals who have some mobility challenges or balance challenges. They may be engaging in class completely seated the entire class. and generally are doing level 1 and 2 exercises. Those classes tend to be a little smaller, a little bit slower pace. We might do a reduced number of sets or repetitions of any one exercise, and really is designed for someone who is maybe a little bit more fearful. They've lost some mobility, and this is an easier on ramp into what an exercise program looks like. On the other end of the spectrum, we have something called Vivo Plus. Vivo Plus are going to be Vivo Plus classes will be for individuals who are looking for a really challenging at-home exercise program. We'll be doing more reps or more, sets. We'll be doing mostly introducing and really focusing on level 3 and 4 versions of those exercises. Again, we can regress or progress any exercise in any class. We have a lot of classes that have people of all spectrums of mobility and strength and fitness in those classes. We just try to help people find classes that they may feel more comfortable in. So we've got Vivo Foundations, Vivo Plus, and in the middle, we actually just call it Vivo. We probably should have some cute branded name, but we don't. And so we help people find the class that they feel the most comfortable in. But that in combination with these levels and kind of different variations of doing exercises really makes this so people of any level of mobility can engage. And the last thing I'll share about this, Cheryl, is that's the most common objection that I see is when we talk to an older adult about what we do, people automatically think that they're not able to do this, or they'll say something like, okay, I need to get healthy first or start walking first, and then I can join this program. And I think it's we all have this inside of us, right? It's kind of hard to put yourself out there and take that first step. One of the things that we always try to help people understand is this program is appropriate for pretty much everybody, and we help you to take those next steps. You don't need to take those next steps and then join Vivo. This really is, there's a place for you. If you want to participate in a class seated the entire time, we can absolutely make that happen. And then we'll start to create little bouts of challenge to get you progressing so that you can participate out of the chair, standing, maybe supported, and continue to kind of move that progression down the line.
I love how you're building confidence in people as well as with this foundation class. It sounds like you're providing people with the information that they need to then perhaps move on to the next level if they're physically able to. I'm thinking about myself when I in my youth as a student athlete, where you don't just come in learning how to run the hurdles that I did, and you don't come in knowing how to use the weight room. Someone has to teach you.
That's right.
And even as an adult, you still need to be taught if it's something new, and you're providing that.
That's right. And that is the value of this live small group, right? Is you get that oversight. You get another human being who understands exercise and exercise science and aging and can be there to guide you. Whereas when you watch a video by yourself, even we're getting wonderful advancements in technology with computer vision. And now we know that these programs can, especially some of these online physical therapy programs, they can look at the movement of your body and help correct that through computer vision. Even with that, having a human being who can actually have a conversation with you, Cheryl, and can explain to you how to move your body so that you're safe or that you don't hurt your back. That's such an important part of this, especially over time, that you just can't get from a video. And so that's a huge component of what we do, and helping deliver this message that it's not too late. It's never too late to start a program like this. We have participants in their 90s who had either never exercised in their life or had gotten away from it. And we see these incredible gains because we do these assessments, right? We get to measure this progress. We see incredible gains from folks in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It just is never too late. And that's an important thing to remember as we think about engaging in programs like this.
Something I ask most of my guests is if you could share a specific success story or stories about some of the individuals that have participated in Vivo where you and your trainers have really seen the positive results.
So we are very, very fortunate that we have a very passionate, customer base, and they share stories with us literally weekly, almost daily. we get emails. It's the most heartwarming thing in the world because what's amazing, as I noted earlier, is if you strength train consistently, you will get stronger. These things naturally happen with every single person who's participating in this program. That
Mhm.
being said, and they range, by the way, from being able to ride bikes with their grandkids, or now they can get off of the floor, or now they're able to travel and do some things that they never thought they could do. There are two stories that happened literally in the last 4 weeks that are just the most amazing things that give me such a wonderful sense of why we are doing this. Um, the first is about 2 weeks ago. We run Vivo classes specifically for caregivers through a partnership with the New York State Office for Aging. And we what's it's a wonderful thing. Often caregivers, unpaid caregivers, right? You're a spouse who is taking care of their spouse who's typically going through a, an acute situation, whether it's dementia, whether it's loss of mobility, et cetera. And we all know about at this point caregiver burden and what a significant issue that is. And often caregivers really their own health and wellness suffers. And so we really focus on self care and we bring together groups of caregivers that allow them to focus on themselves for 45 minutes. And there's something therapeutic about it, but obviously there's something, physically and mentally challenging about this too. Well, one of the women who is a caregiver emailed us a couple of weeks ago and said Vivo has given her the strength and the confidence, which is also a really important part of this, to do something that she's always wanted to do: skydiving. She's 73 years old and sent us a picture of her skydiving, for the first time and attributed it to Vivo, and that was such like this the image of her skydiving is unbelievable, and it was a wonderful example. Yes, it's extreme, not everybody wants to skydive, but we're not talking about an Olympic athlete. We're talking about someone who's a regular individual like all of us, who has always wanted to do something that now found the strength and confidence to do at a much later age than I think all of us typically attribute with skydiving. And the image itself is such a wonderful representation. So that was story number one that just was so heartwarming and indicative of what we see, right? People get strength and confidence to do things they want to do. The second story is just as impactful, but for a different reason. We have a customer who was on a road trip driving from Minnesota to Iowa, and in the middle of that road trip was her Vivo class, and she
Mhm.
didn't want to miss her Vivo class, so she pulled over on the side of the highway and did her Vivo class next to her car, standing next to a cornfield, while in the middle of this of her road trip. And at first, and also the trainer sent a picture of her in participating in Vivo, and she said a bunch of people pulled over and wanted to make sure she was okay, and she's like, "Yep, I'm just doing my online exercise class." And it was such a great story for a variety of reasons, but it actually hit me about a week later of why this was such a great story. Because the fact that she pulled over and then, and did Vivo on the side of the highway is really neat and it's cute. But when you get a little bit deeper, why did she do that? Right? Why did she pull over and not want to miss her Vivo class? Because it was so important to her to be a part of this community. It didn't matter that she was on the side of the road next to a cornfield. She was not going to miss her Vivo class. She was not going to miss her opportunity to connect with the participants in this group that she's gotten to know. And it obviously makes her feel better, right? Physically and probably mentally and emotionally. And what a wonderful, story to encapsulate the spirit of what we are trying to do and to deliver, which is helping create this accountability, help people understand how powerful exercise is and how important it is, and doing it under this umbrella of community, of creating a social network. And I think that's a wonderful story that truly kind of encapsulates this vision that we're trying to deliver on.
And there's the community that you're providing to your members and the community that you're all providing for the employees, because it has to be a good community of employees for people to share out these stories. So that's just so commendable to the organization.
100%. That is such a big part of this is we have a large network of trainers that are they are the face of Vivo, right? Like That is the relationship people are establishing with our trainers. And so we are very, very intentional about finding trainers who are really good at this and who are really passionate and really care, because that comes through, right? If someone is just
Mhm.
going through the motions, you don't get that connection. So, first and foremost, something that we don't often talk about, but I think is important, most of our trainers are older. And there's a little bit of a deeper sense of trust and empathy between an older trainer and an older participant. We do have younger trainers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there has to be a special level of passion and engagement and interest in understanding and engaging with an older adult who has a more complex, circumstance around everything that they're dealing with. And so that's a huge part of the relationship, and it's a really great point to point out, Cheryl.
So, Eric, what has your personal work at Vivo taught you about aging well?
That's such a wonderful question, and literally a conversation I had with my wife this morning as we were getting ready for work is Vivo has given me an understanding of what aging looks like beyond what I ever knew and what is
Mm.
possible. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my own fears of aging. I think we live in an age of society where we are kind of taught to equate aging with decline and aging with negative emotions. And I'm a part of that, right? We all kind of hear these messages all the time that make aging seem like something we should be afraid of. And what Vivo has done, it's really flipped that on its head for me personally. And understanding with aging comes empowerment. And there's so much opportunity, and this physical decline that we feel like is so inevitable, we're in control of that. There's something we can do about it. And it just so happens that building strength is perhaps the most important, or arguably the most important. And really helping people understand that, I get to see what people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond can do when they're engaging with challenging their muscles on a regular basis, movement, intentional movement, and nutrition, sleep, mental health. These are all really, really important things that are all synergistic. You can't really talk about exercise and not talk about nutrition. They are two sides of the same coin. Sleep is such an integral part of this. We know that when you don't get enough sleep, it will actually impact your physical capabilities. You won't be able to work out as effectively if you don't sleep well. And so all of these things are kind of tied together, a sense of purpose, mental health, right? Mindfulness, it's all relevant, it's all attached, but seeing what is possible and understanding that there is a lot of kind of ageist fundamental principles that are out there in society, that make us think that aging is going to be this giant, decline, and knowing that it doesn't have to be, but there's something we have to do about it. We have to be intentional. It won't happen by accident. That's really been a wonderful inspiration for me personally, for my aging parents. I now have 2 parents who are over 80. I do Vivo with both of my parents. They're divorced, they live in different states, so I actually do Vivo with my dad twice a week and my mom twice a week. It's been this incredible inspiration to see what how this has impacted their lives and how this has impacted my life. And as a total aside, that is something I do love to talk about, is the gift of doing this with your aging parents. I don't know if that's something that I can dive deeper into, Cheryl, but I'd love to, because it's been such a profound thing that I've personally experienced and I've seen growing more and more with our customer base, where we have adult children in their 30s, 40s, 50s engaging with their aging parents in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s in this wonderful shared experience.
And it can be tough to if you are raising your own children, for example, and you have your parents and you want to do something to help them. It can be hard to figure out what that is, and especially if you have parents that are trying to maintain their independence, age at home, and they maybe are having some mobility struggles. So the fact that you even offer Vivo to that extent to build a family community is, I mean, it just goes beyond what really the expectations of an exercise program would ever be.
And this is, it's quite honestly the thing that every time I talk about this, like the hairs on my arms stand up. Like there's something so really neat about this that I love to share this, because it's one thing to buy your parents things or recommend
Mhm.
to your parents, or to monitor your parents. Those are all important things to do. It's something else completely to have a shared experience with your parent at this age, at this time in our lives, and not only have a shared experience, but have a shared experience that is good for both of you and naturally releases endorphins. When you exercise, there's a reward center in your brain that when you're done exercising, you tend to feel good. When you experience things like that with other people, it tends to really help develop that relationship. And so I kind of stumbled upon this organically when I first built this Vivo program with our team in April of 2020. I was so excited because my parents were truly the inspiration behind this endeavor. And I took this to my dad, who lives in Philadelphia. I live in Atlanta. And I was like, Dad, I'd love for you to be an early customer and help kind of vet this. Does it work? Does it not work? Do you enjoy it? And his response was something along the lines of, "Oh, Eric, I'm so proud of you for doing this, but it's not really for me."
Mm.
And I was like, "What do you mean it's not for you? It's absolutely for you." And proceeded to have this back and forth where he gave me what I now refer to as the objections, which are a lot of very common objections that a lot of older adults have. I don't have time. I'd get hurt. I've never strength trained before. It's not for me. I already walk. I don't need to strength train. All of these things that I think are naturally in all of us, but are really based in fear, I think was something that I heard from my dad. And eventually, out of exacerbation, nothing more, I basically said, "Well, Dad, what if I do this with you?" And without hesitation, he said yes. And at that point, I knew there was something there,
Yeah.
because what the motivation for my dad was to spend more time with his adult child. And that was 4.5 years ago. We do Vivo twice a week, every single week. I get to see my dad. I get to see how he moves. I get to see how he's feeling. I
Mhm.
get to see his expression, his sentiment. But not only that, we have a shared experience where it's not me as a caregiver, as a remote caregiver, but we're doing something together that's facilitated that we both participate in. And it's so amazing because this has really enhanced our relationship, both with my dad and my mom. We just see each other every week, multiple times. We have something else to talk about. And I'm having a role, a hand in helping him maintain his independence, maintain his quality of life, which again, the science is really, really clear. If you do this consistently, your life will get better. And so it's just been this really, really wonderful experience that I try to help other people in the sandwich generation really understand, which is doing this for your aging parent is very much a mutually beneficial win-win. You will get exercise, it will help your relationship, it will help the caregiving activities that you're doing because they will stay healthier. It is, and it's of course, most importantly, it's really meaningful to your parent. And so I love sharing this story with people. It's a really important part of what we do. And the last thing I'll say is very specifically, I'm in a class every Tuesday and Thursday with my mom, my wife, her parents, so my in-laws,
Mhm.
my sister, her brother, and my daughter, my 21-year-old daughter. We all do this class together. It's amazing. We're across 5 different states in 5 different decades of age, and yet
Mhm.
we all get to experience the same class at the same time. It's interactive. We're chatting with each other. We're laughing with each other. We're commiserating because it's hard and we're sweating. And it's this wonderful, wonderful experience that I wish more people knew was at their disposal, is to engage as a family in this really wonderful, healthy activity.
I'm thinking about, touching with you more about this to engage with my extended family who are, all over from near and far. I know after hearing this that I'm going to have listeners who want to learn more about Vivo. So where can they go to do just that? Learn more.
So go to our website, which is teamvivo.com, team like you're a part of a team, TAAM, VIVO.com. We believe that when you do join this program, you are a part of this team. You're a part of this initiative to really change how we think about aging and understanding what's possible, whether you want to go skydiving or you just want to get on the floor and play with your grandkids. And so If you go to teamvivo.com, you'll notice we have a button to join, just a free intro class.
Hmm.
And that is probably the easiest way to engage because for recognizing for a lot of people, it's hard to take that first step. And we think we can't do this. We think it's not for them, or we're afraid that we're going to get hurt, or we might be embarrassed. We want to give people a soft landing, an easy entry point. And so these free intro classes, we do 4 of them every single week, and you can sign up, and it's more talking than moving. So we help explain what we do, why we do it, and then we want to give you a little bit of an experience to see that you can do this and give people the confidence that this is for them. And hopefully you walk away from that class feeling a little bit better also. So I would really encourage, go to teamvivo.com, sign up for one of these free trial intro classes, and get a firsthand experience with what this is like. And hopefully you'll see that you did enjoy it, you were able to do it, and want to do it a little bit more. And we allow for monthly memberships where you can cancel at any time. There's no commitment. You can join for a month, you can join for a year, you can join for years. And hopefully you see the value, the benefit once you take this class, and it helps open that door and helps you take that first step.
Thank you so much for joining me today, being such a charismatic guest, and also sharing Vivo's fitness programs and all the reasons why it's so important to be strength training for everyone, and especially older adults with the Honestly Aging audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a unique program focused on aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience. You can find links and show notes from this episode on our website at friendslifecare.org/podcast. Thank you to Eric Levitan for joining us today. You can learn more about Eric and Vivo by visiting teamvivo.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. If you like our show, please rate, review, subscribe, and join us next time. To learn more about aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience, subscribe to our blog at friendslifecare.org/blog.